Good evening and welcome to Brookfield Public Advocate. I'm your host, Bruce Senek. As we have stated periodically over the past 18 months, our mission statement makes reference to our show as a venue where alternative views can be expressed. Tonight we offer a no-spin view regarding the proposed town charter changes. This evening's guest is an expert regarding tonight's topic. But first, I'd like to explain to our audience why I decided to open up our show for this rebuttal of the proposals to change Brookfield's charter. I'm compelled to tell viewers how lucky they are here in Brookfield with the provisions currently within our present town charter. When I moved to Brookfield from White Plains almost 8 years ago now, I happily discovered how instrumental regular folks were in voicing their desires in determining the town's destiny. You see, in White Plains, basically all decisions were decided directly by the mayor and by the common council. Decisions on building in the downtown area or elsewhere were decided solely by the common council. The budget was also decided solely by the common council, and the list goes on and on. As a resident of White Plains, our only recourse was to vote for or against either the mayor or common council members come election time. And, oh, by the way, their terms were 4 years. Here in Brookfield, we have the opportunity to bring about change every 2 years with regard to our selectmen. We are also presented with the opportunity to become involved on several levels within our community relative to the various boards and aspects of our town government. Currently, we have the power to bring about change. Case in point, remember Costco? Costco's aborted attempt to move to the cornfield. If the original plan had been approved, you would now have a roundabout before Graffiti Bridge. Traffic tie-ups would be routine where Federal Road becomes one lane in each direction. The low-lying area of the field, the cornfield, along with the Still River, would be environmentally impacted. And feeder streets, once quiet, would be teeming with cars and trucks looking for back roads to avoid Federal Road. How was that laid to rest? By average folks banding together, taking on a huge corporation who had, unfortunately, received poor advice from local realtors. Even though those same realtors warned that Costco would leave Brookfield, Costco did not leave. Not only that, they are currently expanding. Costco now has competition from BJ's. Obviously, BJ's knows the value of Brookfield. Brookfielders, on November 6th, you have the opportunity to maintain our town's character and its charm. This makes your modest host most glad to have chosen Brookfield when leaving Westchester 8 years ago. Observing and experiencing the practices here, I pose this question to you. Why? No, really, why would you allow the proposed charter changes to be approved? Bethel doesn't have a town manager. New Fairfield doesn't have a town manager. New Milford, with twice the residents of Brookfield, doesn't have a town manager, nor does Newtown, where we're taping. We'll be discussing this issue as well as others tonight. Many of our viewers, like me, were not Brookfielders when our guest this evening, Marty Fonsello, served the town as our first selectman from December 1999 to December 2003. Marty, welcome to our show, and thanks for coming.
Good evening. Thanks for inviting me.
Please tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
As you stated, I was the first selectman from the end of 99 to 2003. I've lived in Brookfield now with my family for about 30 years. Son went through the public school system. In '86, some of the things I've done with the town, in 1986, I worked with the people of Greenridge to form the tax district there and the water company, and I served as the president of that for about 14 years. Between my first and second terms in office, and many of the people who've been in town for about 10 years or so know, I got called to active duty for a few months after the 9/11 attacks. So that was an issue of importance at the time. I'm currently retired from the military after 28 years in. I do some work now for the federal government.
Okay. Marty, please tell our viewers the purpose of the town charter and the responsibilities that it holds for the well-being of our town.
Well, the charter is basically the town's constitution. It has the laws in it that elected officials have to follow in running the operation of the town. It outlines who the elected officials are, who the appointed officials are. It lists the boards and commissions and I believe the terms of office for each of them. It tells specific things for the people like the laws pertaining to the creation of ordinances and importantly how people can initiate actions and how they can overturn decisions made by the Board of Selectmen.
What, or who, for that matter, determines the timing of the charter review?
The charter itself states that the Board of Selectmen at least once every 5 years has to review the charter. There's nothing that states that it has to make changes to it, just review it.
Okay. And so, again, what or who initiates, this necessity for a review, or is that just subjective?
Well, it's a commission, so Charter Review Commission, although it isn't even named as such in the charter, but the Board of Selectmen have the authority to create commissions. They create the commission, give it the charge to review the charter, and then they choose the people who are on that particular charter. And unlike some of the other ones, I reviewed the current copy of the charter. There's nothing that states how many people you have to have on that particular commission.
Okay. Well, following up on that, what process is used then in choosing members to be on the Charter Review Committee?
Again, it's up to the Board of Selectmen, so that may vary from board to board. In being fair to all the constituents in the town, you should have some Republicans, some Democrats, some unaffiliated. And I haven't looked to see if the current members of that commission are broken down by any representative percentages by those parties.
Okay. Well, let's go into some depth now on some of the major points of the committee. We'll first cover some of the following proposals. The town manager, another, the increase to 5 selectmen, another, the increased percentage requirements for petitions, the move that could raise the town budget, and what happens to the losing first selectman candidate. But due to time constraints of the show's airtime, we may not hit them all. Let's begin with the town manager position. If we could put up on the screen the slide for the town manager position. Marty, could you please tell our viewers why you believe this is a bad idea?
Certainly. Again, I'm encouraging everyone to vote no on this particular question. Actually, I would encourage them to vote no on all of the questions, but we'll start with the town manager. This proposed change would create a new position of town manager who would be the chief operating officer, replacing the first selectman in terms of running the day-to-day operations of the town. So this person would have the power to hire and fire, of course with the approval of the selectmen, but do everything during the course of the business day that needs to be done in the town. The biggest problem with this is that by having a town manager who's actually an employee of the town, not an elected official, you as a voter lose the right to vote for the person who's running the day-to-day operations of the town. You will have no say whether or not you like the job he's doing. You have no say whether or not that person should stay in that position. According to the proposed change, that would be up to the Board of Selectmen, in which case the counter-argument would be made that, well, you could replace the selectmen if they didn't vote the way you wanted to replace somebody, but then generally speaking, as an employee of the town, they'd have to have cause. They have to show cause to get rid of the person. So once the person was in, he or she could be in for a long time, whether you're elected or not.
And I imagine that with the addition of a town manager, there would be some substantial costs that would be involved.
There would be. Again, the town manager would get a salary as an employee. And the example that I'll use here was one that came from the commission's public hearing that they had. They brought an individual in from Mansfield, and we had to check because they weren't forthcoming in giving us the salary of the person. We determined that that person earned $120,000 a year. That would be as opposed to the first selectman's salary right now, which is about $75,000 or so. In addition, we learned that the town manager in Mansfield has at least one assistant, and we're going to guess that that person makes probably about $60,000. So now you're talking paying benefits about $200,000 for a position that we currently pay $75,000 for, and you have no control over that person, no accountability to the voters, only to the Board of Selectmen.
Yeah. Well, as you know, a financial advisor, my financial advisor hat comes out, and you know, one thing that you didn't mention, but it's a topic of quite some interest here in town, is the funding of the pension, and then of course you're funding for the town manager, you're funding for his full-time employee. I was at that meeting. I actually got the impression that there were two employees, but regardless,
there could be, yeah,
it's certainly quite an increase to the town, and again, I just think all of this needs to be taken into account. I also wonder, when you look at the financial situation with the town and the budget process that we've had in town, that this again, some people might say, well, if we have limited dollars, if we opt for a town manager, then that might mean people are less likely to even go towards funding education. That, of course, the Board of Education always comes up with these increases. But again, just let's focus on the town manager solely on that. Okay, let's. Was there anything else you wanted to add about the town manager?
Yeah, again, I see no advantages to appointing a town manager, as you stated in your opening statement. None of the other towns that are similar to us in the area have a town manager. It isn't progress to go for a town manager, especially when you're losing your right to vote for that person. So there's no progress there. The person brings nothing more to the table than you can get from the people in town already. There are clearly enough people in Brookfield with enough experience that they could be the first selectman. We have people that have run their own businesses, people that have worked for major corporations, and people that have military experience, all of whom would be more than qualified to run in the top position. And they'd be happy to do so. You'll never run short, I'm convinced, of people that would be willing to run for the position. If nothing else, both parties will nominate somebody each time that there's an election for the position, so you'll never have a shortage of candidates. So again, I see no advantage to having this person. If the counter-argument is made that he has particular expertise in a certain area, my counter to that would be as follows. All chief elected officials, from first selectman, say, all the way up to the president, all right, we understand that none of them actually have expertise in every single area over which they have oversight.
Right.
They may have very specific backgrounds. If they need people with specific expertise in legal or finance or economics or whatever it may be, they bring in specialists to help them out with that. On Brookfield's level, since we're small, we don't have departments like the federal government. If Brookfield, for example, needed somebody with expertise, if you planned on building a building, well, you could hire for the duration of that project an expert to come in and be a consultant to the selectmen to help get you through the process. So there's no need to bring another person in permanently that you have no control over, you as the voter.
Okay. Let's move to another slide, and that would be where the proposal to increase the number of selectmen from 3 to 5. Could you give us your thoughts on that?
I can, and some of the questions we're going to cover, I understand we can't get to them all here today.
Right.
But in general, what I see is that the proposals here are taking power away from the people and putting them in the hands of a few. In the first case, we said with the town manager, you lose the right to vote for that person. In this particular case, a little explanation is necessary. With the current 3-member Board of Selectmen, a quorum is a majority, and that would be 2. And according to the charter and to state statutes, I believe, whenever you have a quorum, so 2 members of the board speaking together, that is a quorum, and it's an official meeting for which you have to post notice of the meeting, have minutes that go on file, and no business can be conducted unless it's in a public setting. If you should increase the board to 5, now you have a bit of a problem from the perspective of the voter, and that is that the quorum becomes 3 members, which means that any 2 members or all of the members in pairs can talk to discuss any business matter offline, and the public is unaware of what they're discussing. So all that they would have to do is come in and vote on something at a meeting, and you would have no idea how these people voted, and how can you as a voter be expected to vote intelligently if you don't know how these people vote and what they're thinking. So I would be totally against a 5-member board. 3 is sufficient in a town like Brookfield.
Yeah, okay. Okay, let's move along to another slide, and that would be regarding referendum and signature requirements. Can you address that?
Yes, this one, again, it's making it more difficult for the people in the town to have some say in the operation of the town government. What this particular question is proposing, that we change the number of signatures on a petition. For example, if you wanted to overturn a motion of the Board of Selectmen. Currently, you need 2% of the registered voters to complete a petition to call for a town meeting, at which time you would vote to either overturn or keep what the selectmen had decided. By increasing to 4%, you're doubling, obviously, the amount of signatures. And in Brookfield, what does that mean? Well, round figures, there are about 10,000 voters, registered voters in the town.
Correct.
So right now, you need about 200 to get a petition submitted. You would then need 400. Extremely difficult to do. So again, what is it doing? It's limiting your right to even protest what the people running the town are doing, and I'm totally opposed to that. And we have obviously some recent examples of that, if I can give a couple.
Absolutely.
The most recent one was the petition against the dog park referendum at Happy Landings Farm. Again, obviously many people were opposed to that. If it wasn't for those people doing all that hard work, and we thank them for all the work that they did, we brought it to a vote, and I believe it was defeated 3-1. So clearly the selectmen were trying to put something through that was not popular, and the people in the town just did not want it. Okay, increase that to 4%, it may have been harder or impossible to get that to a vote. That was one. Another instance, fairly recently, the barbers and the hairstylists in town also had to gather signatures for a petition about a fee increase for their businesses. Again, if the number of signatures was higher, they would not have had a town meeting. They did, as I understand it, they were not successful at the meeting, but at least they had the opportunity to vote on the issue to try to overturn it. And then going back about a year or so, and again I have more knowledge and more involvement with this in Greenridge, we had to file a petition to overturn a vote of the Board of Selectmen, which basically caused the first selectman to renege on a contract he had already signed.
Right.
Again, it would have been much more difficult to do. Try to get these petitions signed, especially in the wintertime. It's nearly impossible. So again, just these 3 questions you've brought up here so far, they're taking away your right to vote, hiding what your elected officials are doing, so there's privacy there, no transparency. And here they're preventing you as a voter from challenging anything that the elected board does.
Yeah. Well, the dog park, I'm in a different part of town, doesn't affect me. I signed the petition solely because I thought the Board of Selectmen really weren't hearing what I felt, at least the people I talked to, the majority of Brookfield wanted. And I think, to me, that is an excellent case of how it might not have even come to a vote, and Happy Landings might by this time have a dog park on it. Okay. Again, I just want to mention to our viewers, due to time constraints, we may have a little, not be able to hit all the topics, but with the, there's also one of the proposals about raising the town budget. And if you could maybe speak to that for maybe a minute or 30 seconds.
That's the question about voting at the annual town meeting to increase? Correct. Is that it? Again, I don't think that needs to be done. There's some discrepancy in what they've put out in legal notices and the question. It would appear from the way the question is worded, if you got a certain percentage of voters at the meeting, you could actually increase the budget and there's no limit on it, according to the way the question is worded. So my perspective is the Board of Ed, the Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance set a budget. It goes to the annual town meeting, again, for the purpose of being voted on in a referendum. The public has plenty of say, through their vote as to whether or not they like that budget. If it's approved, then you get the budget that was proposed. If it's not approved, the Board of Finance and the other boards have to go back and take a look at the numbers and cut them down a little bit. I don't think it does us any good to go and try to bump up the numbers at a meeting before it's voted on by the entire town.
Right, okay. No, I agree. As I mentioned, we are running a little late. If you could keep, you know, that couple of slides up on the screen there, the last slide. Okay. What would you say, I'm sorry, here we are. What would be the most important point, again, we're coming to the end of the show, for the viewers to remember about these changes to the proposed charter review?
Again, I would encourage them to vote no on all of them. Don't leave them blank, because blank could be a yes vote. It could help yes win. Voting no on all the questions doesn't hurt anything. It keeps the charter exactly as it is now. And if you're unfamiliar with the charter, that's okay. You can have more time down the road to review it, see what changes may need to be made. But some of these changes, the ones we've discussed so far, are extremely important. We don't want to see these changes take place. And again, the voters, just to make sure, on November the 6th, I guess it is, presidential election day, it will be on, those questions will be on the ballot. I think there are 9 of them. And so I'm encouraging them, after you vote for your presidents and congressmen and what have you, vote no on all of the questions.
Okay. All right, well, we're going to wrap up our show now. Again, I'd like to thank tonight's special guest, Marty Fonsello, former Brookfield First Selectman, for appearing on our show. Thank you, Marty.
Thank you.
And I'd like to remind our viewers that our air dates on Charter, Channel 21, are on Mondays at 4:30 and Thursdays at 7 p.m. We also post segments up on YouTube. After the show airs on Charter, you can look for it up on YouTube. And we'd love to hear from you, whether it be comments on the current show or past shows, guests you might like to see in the future, or ideas or topics that you'd like to see for future shows. And you may contact us at brookfieldpublicadvocate@yahoo.com. Again, thanks to our guest.
Thank you.
Thank you, viewers. And thanks for watching, and good night.
Good night. Shake if we're still on here. Thanks a lot.